Traditional fighting games like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat thrive on highly defined rules. They rely on strict hitboxes, balanced frame data, and predictable mechanics that satisfy competitive players. This pie chart compares the massive scale of those traditional titles to the MMA gaming market. With Mortal Kombat moving around 100 million units and Smash Bros. Hitting 78 million, the UFC franchise's 8.9 million shows just how small the MMA gaming slice is. To build a realistic MMA simulation, developers must merge high-speed, fluid striking with the slow, tactile friction of ground-based grappling. Balancing those two halves perfectly is nearly impossible. MMA games exist in a highly specific subgenre, where mechanics are uniquely difficult to tune, and catering to one style almost always alienates fans of the other. Look at the modern titan of the industry, EA UFC 5. It carries the official licensing, heavy marketing, and peak visual polish. Then look at the challenger, a legacy title released 12 years ago that a dedicated, hardcore community simply refuses to let go of, UFC Undisputed 3. The data shows a massive disconnect. EA UFC 5 easily wins on raw sales, but Metacritic tells a different story. Reviewers score the older game an 85, while the modern release sits at a 78. You are forced to choose between modern convenience and mechanical depth. We're going to put these two eras head-to-head across 4 key metrics to see which one is actually worth your time. This matrix breaks down the modern and classic eras to establish the criteria for our showdown. Starting with graphics, EA UFC 5 takes the clear win. Running on Frostbite, it delivers realistic, M-weighted damage models, reflecting the brutal physical toll of a cage fight. It also gives you access to the current 2024 UFC roster, meaning you can play as highly relevant modern champions like Sean O'Malley. But accessing that modern presentation requires a financial trade-off. You have to pay full $70 AAA prices for what the community widely considers to be minor iterative updates over the previous release. Once you buy in, you'll also navigate aggressive monetization systems pushing microtransactions to unlock specific fighter alter egos and cosmetic tweaks. You get peak modern aesthetics and current champions, but at the steep cost of aggressive monetization and iterative game design. Moving down the matrix to the striking column, the focus shifts to the stand-up mechanics. EA UFC 5 utilizes a highly fluid, visually spectacular kickboxing system. It's built from the ground up to be beginner-friendly. If you want to sit on the couch with a friend or jump right into a fast-paced online match, this streamlined approach works incredibly well. Anyone can pick up a controller and start throwing combinations. The massive trade-off is that the fighters end up feeling homogeneous. Instead of distinct martial arts disciplines with varied timing, distance, and weight, you get a universal arcade-style rhythm applied to almost the entire roster. The modern engine is fun and accessible for everyone, but it sacrifices the tactical pacing of true martial arts for high-speed, arcade-style action. Looking at the grappling row, the advantage shifts completely to the 12-year-old Undisputed 3. The intricate ground game and submission mechanics in Undisputed 3 require precise timing, leverage, and constant situational awareness. It remains the gold standard for simulating how fighters actually battle for position on the mat. It preserves immense historical value, including the brutal Pride FC rule set, simulating an era of the sport that allowed soccer kicks and grounded knees. But playing it today involves massive friction. With the online servers completely dead for years, you either have to track down legacy hardware like a PlayStation 3 or configure complex PC emulators. You get unmatched mechanical depth and historical accuracy, but you have to overcome significant technical hurdles just to experience it entirely offline. If an older game has a better grappling system, it raises an obvious question. Why doesn't EA copy those deeper mechanics into their new games? This bar chart of launch week sales provides the answer. EA's UFC 3 sold roughly 200,000 copies in its first week. UFC 5 moved an estimated 1 million copies in that same timeframe. The strategy driving those numbers is called casual capture. By simplifying the controls, a publisher guarantees sales from the broadest possible demographic, rather than trying to satisfy a small pool of hardcore purists. Hitting 1 million launch sales proves to corporate decision-makers that simplifying the game works. They have zero financial incentive to invest resources into returning to punishing simulation mechanics. Modern MMA games are built as accessible live service products for the casual fan. The complex purist simulation is gone because it simply doesn't scale financially. The reality of the MMA genre is that it is fractured. There is no perfect game on the market. To find your ideal compromise, take a look at this decision matrix. The vertical axis measures how much you value online play and a modern roster, while the horizontal axis tracks your desire for deep simulation. EA UFC 5 sits firmly in the top left quadrant, prioritizing modern features, visual polish, and instant accessibility. Undisputed 3 lands in the bottom right, prioritizing mechanical depth and accurate fighting styles over everything else. The decision comes down to choosing the specific set of compromises you are willing to live with. You pick the game where the mechanical gaps bother you the least. If you are a modern competitor who just wants convenience and multiplayer action, your path is straightforward. If climbing ranked online ladders and playing as current champions on modern hardware is your absolute priority, EA UFC 5 is your recommendation. But if you identify as a hardcore simulation purist, your priorities are entirely different. Sourcing a copy of Undisputed 3 is absolutely worth your time if complex grappling, distinct martial art styles, and an immersive offline career mode matter more to you than modern graphics. Don't buy strictly on marketing hype, and don't spend hours setting up an emulator just chasing blind nostalgia. Acknowledge the flaws of your chosen era, and pick the game that respects exactly what you want to get out of the virtual octagon.